Great to see you all again. So as Sue said, Marvin, until June of this year, was Executive VP for Europe for manufacturing at Toyota. So that was, I mean, it's fair to say, Marvin, one of the top 10 exec automotive roles in Europe, by my estimations.
I guess so, but I've never looked at it like that. But I think you're probably right, yeah. It did feel like it at times.
Yeah. So 25,000 staff across multiple countries in one of the most respected companies in the world. So here's the point, folks. We've got him here on stage today, and we're going to do Q&A later on. So please do prepare your questions. I interviewed Marvin.
Please be kind.
I interviewed Marvin in May of this year for our Leading for Business Excellence podcast, which at the time was a couple of about 6 weeks before you left Toyota. And what I found there was, given the seniority that I've just described and the amazingly successful career that Marvin has had, what I found was an incredibly candid interview, and coming from a incredibly humble position, which was joyful to do. And I know I've used that word already today, but truly it was. So we leapt at the chance of twisting Marvin's arm when he didn't know what he was yet going to be doing in September, and trying to get him to commit to come and join us today. And I am delighted to have him here with us. So what we found in that interview was a series of insights that Marvin shared so generously. And we're going to take this in the form of a chat, which, starting with a question around your new role at the University of Derby, Marvin, so that, tell everyone about that.
Yeah, I felt like I was going through that curve, actually, over the last few months that Charlie Unwin talked about this morning. I think I've just come out of the red phase through the, perform and compete, or compete and perform. And then I took 2 months off over the summer, so I guess I was in the green zone, so reflect and recuperate.
With the heart rate doing the similar thing.
Yeah. And I'm just going in the blue zone with this new role, where I'm kind of in that training of preparing and not really quite understanding everything about it yet. But my retirement wasn't a great surprise to me. It was something that I'd planned for a number of years and discussed with the company and firmed up last September. But also I was thinking about what to do next. And if I wanted to remain in industry, I was staying with Toyota because I knew how to do that. But I wanted to retire and have some energy to do the good things in life while I still could. But also I wanted to do something where I felt I could contribute in an area that was a bit out of my comfort zone. So I have to say, running Toyota's manufacturing for Europe, even though it was a significant size, I felt very comfortable. I knew how to do that. Walking into the university education establishment was quite a big change, and I'm really looking forward to trying to contribute in a new exciting area. My title is Professor of Enterprise, which I'm thinking, what does that mean? But the role very much is looking at how universities are a force for good and contribute. They've got the student element, there's the research element, and then sort of third stream income coming very much from executive education or bespoke education, apprenticeships, or other things, or knowledge transfer between the university and companies. And really, I'm aiming to be a bridge between academia and industry, really, to develop that for the university. And I'm from Derby, and I was attracted, of course, to something that I could do within the city and try and contribute back there. But also the University of Derby it has a business school already, and I'm part of the business school now. But it's developing a brand new business school in the city, which will open next year. We're very excited about that. And I'm very attracted because, the University of Derby has some of the top 2% researchers in the world, most cited. It's an applied university. It very much is developing its relationship industrial engagement. And it's the only university in Derby and Derbyshire, so really how we can contribute not only locally but nationally and globally. So it's exciting. I'm learning every day is a school day, as they say, and it certainly is being in the university for me. So all new, all change, and all good stuff.
No, fantastic. That's really interesting to hear. And just picking up on a comment you made there around the succession planning at Toyota. I know you and I discussed it briefly last night. It's a topic that interests me because you talked about the exec level, the nature of the work and the role allocations. What does succession planning look like? At your level, but also lower down in the business.
Yeah, I think it's developed very much over the years, and how people are evaluated in Toyota has developed over the years. Now it's called a growth, perform and succeed scheme. So it's very much centered around the individuals and the success of the individuals within the business. And Toyota, I think, has been well renowned for having a long range view. And in succession planning, it's not really just about, well, who will take that role when X retires or whatever, if someone leaves, but it's how are we going to be developing the people to be ready to be successful in that next role. And at every level in the organization, that's how the programs are developed. And taking that long range view, we're not, I would say, not always been fantastic at it, and sometimes not good enough at telling the people, advising the people, the possibilities that exist for them in the future. And I think through the new way and new programs, I think that's become much stronger, and hopefully will give people much greater understanding and choice and career opportunity. I think when we look at different demographics, people want different things, and my view is very much, well, if certain demographics of people want 3, 4, 5 careers, rather than going to different companies, why don't we offer that in our company in different locations, whether it be different parts of the business or different parts of the world? So looking at that and making those career plans and paths available and having a very open and transparent discussion with all of our members about that, I think was very key.
And how easy is that to link to process when you think about people working in process and then succession planning connected to those processes? How obvious is that, I guess, is my question.
More obvious than it was now, and I think new processes have been developed. So, Key Talent Forum that was one of the more recent adoptions, because I think when you have a big business, one of the biggest pitfalls is to work in silo and continue to work in silo and look at your succession just in one vertical. Mm-hmm. So in manufacturing, we're looking, okay, these manufacturing people may become good leaders of the manufacturing business in different elements. And we don't think about, well, what about in sales, or what about in corporate planning, or what about other areas? And with the Key Talent Forum that is now introduced, all of the VPs of all of the business units over the whole of Europe come together and have a forum to share who are their key talents and what kind of development opportunities would be good for them. And that means that at a much earlier career stage, there is opportunity to cross-fertilize talent across business unit, which can result in often someone starting in sales, running supply chain, or many other crossovers, or going into sales business unit, enjoying sales business unit, and then coming back with a much broader view on life and a much rounded career profile. So those new processes are built in as one example. So I think these things have to. Toyota's very process driven in wherever it operates, and it's no different in the human development areas. And of course that then links up to all of the appraisal systems, recognition systems as well. So yeah, just as one example.
No, it's great. And you talked in the podcast about, we're talking about quality circles, if you recall. And I recalled from looking back at my notes that you described the recognizable approach, although the subject matter was very different in different areas of the business, that you could walk down the corridor, I think at the time you were in Brussels, and you could walk down the corridor to your salespeople, and they had a quality circle format that was recognizable to someone that was working in manufacturing. I was about to ask the audience a question, can't do that yet, because I'm interested, how that compares to other businesses. Because it struck me when I was discussing that with Marvin that you were saying that people would recognize it, and yes, it may be a bit different, but you could reliably know that that was taking place on a similar cadence and in a similar way. Yeah. And that reflects, I guess, on the point you're just making there about moving people around different functions as well.
It does, and of course not every business unit is solving the same kind of problem in the same way. But I think, and when I reflect back, looking at Toyota, I think it was always a great privilege working in an organization with quite a long-range view.
Right.
and a very clear, which we would call Hoshinkanri, annual plan, that was then cascaded for everyone to contribute to with a very, we talked before about very clear philosophies, techniques and practice. And I think one of the great strengths of Toyota was the fact that the leadership at the very top of the company pretty much always came through the company. There were not big swings and turns in that. The company's evolved so much over many decades. It was a loom maker originally, then automotive company, now we'd call a mobility company, completely regenerated itself. But the core values and philosophies are there for a long, long time. They evolve, but they don't change quickly. And of course, the tools and techniques are moving all of the time, but they are based upon very strong core values and principles. And I think that was a wonderful thing. Wherever you were in the world, you could sense that.
Okay.
And therefore, there was this feeling, yeah, this is Toyota. It's very recognizable, whichever part of the world you're in. I always remember when TM UK, Toyota Motor Manufacturing UK, began, and the first president, Hirano, stood in front of us all and said, we will take the best of Japan and its culture, and we will bring it together with the best of the UK culture. And respect the local values, but use the core principles of Toyota to do that. And I think, going again about this development of people, and you talked about QC circles, which is one very good example. One thing that still I reflect on today is that many people miss the key point of what Toyota is trying to do.
Okay. And
many people would adopt the tools and then suddenly find that it's not quite working right. And many people can draw the Toyota house, the foundation of standardized work, probably put in their Kaizen, I hope, and sometimes people will draw in their Heijunka for level production. They'll get the just-in-time pillar, and then we'll get the Jidoka pillar for built-in quality. And, as we would say, yes, it's very much about providing the highest quality product or service in the shortest lead time at the reasonable price. But many times the point that is missed is the part in the center, which Toyota talks about flexible, motivated members. Everybody's a member in Toyota, irrespective of your level, but flexible, motivated people. And I think that is really about people having the opportunity to design their own job.
Okay. And
the Toyota production system is very much a you system, not an I system. It's not about what I want as a leader. It's about what will make work better and more meaningful for others. And therefore, engaging everyone in QC circles is one way of allowing people to make work better. And the first question that's asked in QC circle theme selection is, what is the biggest concern? And the team, maybe 5 or 6 people, will list out maybe 5, 6 or 7, and they will evaluate that by different measures. And they will solve that problem. And many people will say to me, the Toyota production system, that's that lean thing, isn't it? It's about taking the cost out of everything. Well, yeah, it may be that in a sense, but really the sequence in which Toyota approaches problem solving is first safety, then quality, then productivity. And if you get that right, and you build great processes with a tremendously engaged workforce, with a continuous improvement mindset, and with a management team whose leadership role is to create that environment where this culture can grow and develop, then the cost comes.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that's one of the areas where, particularly in a manufacturing environment, the safety is often very common, the thing that comes first. But I think it's the rest of it is highly variable, isn't it, in other businesses? And I'd be interested to collect when we get to questions. I'm asking you questions again, how that compares. This is one of the things that's always really interesting in our profession, where we get exposed to many different companies and seeing different people's takes on it. And I think what you were just talking about there in terms of the strategy deployment, we've described as the constancy of purpose, which is often lacking in many other organisations that try and copy what Toyota do. And I think one of the questions that occurred to me as you were talking just then was, so how is that constancy of purpose and the very long-term nature, how does technology disruptive technology and technology innovation feature in there? How do those two things come together?
I think, the first thing, Toyota's not for everyone, let's say that. And I think the Toyota's philosophy cone leaves a lot of space for people to interpret and work within that. And having a vision of creating mobility for all and a mission of happiness for all. Mm-hmm. For many companies, that might sound very loose and very strange. Of course, with a key value set of the Toyota way, which I think many people understand, and the Toyota production system is the Toyota way in production. But when Akio Toyoda took over, he's recently gone to become chairman. He was our CEO. He said, "Make ever better cars." And many organizations would have a number, but with a continuous improvement mindset, make ever better cars means the cars we make tomorrow should be better than those we make today. And it doesn't matter which part of the business you're in. If you're selling those vehicles, if you're designing those vehicles, if you're making those vehicles, if you're running the financial services, if you're in HR, whatever, you can kind of relate to that. Mm-hmm. Just that continuous improvement mindset, and do it with as Akio would always say, this is a you company, not a I company. Mm-hmm. That then allows you, whenever new technology is coming or whatever, to apply that same thinking. And when it comes to technology, I had this conversation with someone earlier today, adopting technology for the sake of top technology is not a good purpose. Mm-hmm. Adopting the right level of technology is really what we're trying to do. And when we automate things, automate them for the right purpose and the right reason in the right way. Automation is very difficult to manage. I'm sure many of us will recognize that, whether it's in a software environment or a hardware environment or any combination of the two. It takes great skill and resource to be able to do that reliably and dependably. And if you do it badly, it can create big problems. And one of the funny things, I always think back, what I saw over the last 30 years, we used to focus a lot on motion of people, and looking at making that very smooth and very good, or ergonomically good and efficient. Yeah. Then, of course, gradually more automation came in, robot technologies, AGVs, et cetera, But it's amazing how many managers don't look at waste in automation. A leader will walk down onto a workspace, and if they see somebody stood there doing nothing for half of the day, they might, that doesn't look right. But many times you'll see two robots in a cell, one waiting for the other to work, and doesn't even get questioned. Well, that was something that we reflected on and learned, and then you go through that. And then, extending the principles of continuous improvement into that. Well, how can we make that with less waste? And I think then you look at other things, and a lot of my work in the last 3 years, of course, there's always the normal business metrics that you're trying to achieve the profitability through the contribution of the whole organization. But of course, some of the big pillars have been sustainability. Toyota's always worked on sustainability, but the accelerating targets and how to pull forward the net zero targets, etc. Working on other things like digital transformation. I'm working on things like improving diversity, equity, and inclusion, because our company was not diverse enough, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be a very innovative and competitive company, then diversity, I think, is one of the great keys. But approaching those in the same way, with the same value set. Right.
And that's the thing.
You take the issue of diversity, quite frankly, simply said, we didn't employ enough women in the shop floor. Mm-hmm. And I created a target to be, for recruitment, achieve 30% minimum by 2025. I'm pleased to say last year, at the end of 23, we got to over 30% average across Europe. Higher in some areas, a bit lower in the UK, to be honest. It's much higher now in Turkey, Poland. But how did we approach that? Well, we spoke with our people who have the infinite wisdom of the job that they do every day. What makes the difficulty? What would be the issue? And of course, there are lots of things, ergonomic burden. There's a big difference between male and female. Okay, what can we do? Engaged a lot of our women in the process, and they gave us the feedback. They helped us fix the process. All the men said, that's better for us too. And the spiral up of engagement. Okay. And the pilot plant that led it was one of our plants in Poland, and probably it would be no surprise to hear that their motivation index was the highest in Europe also. So these things come together. So I think when you talk about disruptive technology, the approach is not different. But I think there's a discussion on AI I joined earlier today. All of those things, I really agree, are here to augment the things that we're doing within our core systems and core values.
Got it.
Not to replace.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So, folks, I'm mindful that I want to give plenty of opportunity
Talking
here.
too much, is that?
No, absolutely not. You're the easiest person to interview ever. So, folks, please raise your hand if you'd like to put a question to Marvin. If you could, when the microphone comes to you, we've got some microphones operators in the room. When the microphone comes to you, just quickly say your name and the company you're from, and we'll come over to you. Got the first one over here.
Lovely, thank you. Hello. Yeah, so I'm Dan, I'm from Babcock. Hello everyone, hi Marvin. My question centres around, I can only really know from a Western perspective, I don't really know the Eastern side of it. How does Toyota approach what I consider more of a dilemma, where you've got managers where they're expected to take care of a whole group of people, their needs, their requirements, their progression, while also having a specific deliverable themselves. So they're balancing a job, maybe the same capacity as maybe their employees, while also being asked to then be custodian of these individuals as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so how do they deliver results and take care of the people at the same time? Because it's always a busy gig being
I would maybe think that maybe the custodianship would take precedence because you'd get more out of your people than maybe the one individual. Yeah. But I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things I'll say. I have not met a Toyota manager yet who said life is easy in Toyota, and I know one is sat in the room here. And this is one of the other things that I would say first of all, and that is that I've often heard people say, it must be easy to implement these things in Toyota because you're so systemized, you've been doing it for so long. And the truth is it's relentless. And one of the things we spend most of our time on in Toyota, to be honest, is maintaining the fundamentals. And every year there's a huge effort going into that. But I think, again, talking about that engagement element and how to achieve the deliverables, I would say like this, achieve the deliverables through your organization. And if you look at what Toyota would do, for example, in a production environment, which is very familiar with, you will have a group leader who is probably seen as the company to most of the team members making the vehicles. He or she is the leader. And that group leader will have all of the normal 5 major missions to achieve, from safety through to cost metrics, which of course are very challenging, and we do set ambitious and tough targets. But I think the thing is, as any leader, it's not your role to do it by yourself. And allocating role and responsibility and giving ownership within that team to have window role, to have responsibility, and to be engaged in solving the problem by sharing good communication about what it is, what business challenge we might have, I think is a great way of not only taking care and developing the people, but achieving the metrics together. And I think I look back as a manager, and I remember I was the press shop manager in 1990-something, somewhere around then. That was my first leadership role. And one of the things, because I'd worked with the company from being an engineer, I did feel a little bit I had to know everything and be the expert of everything and be able to lead people and say what to do. But one of my bosses said, no, that's not really your job. There may be times when you can do that, but use the infinite wisdom of the people working for you. And I remember having situations, like a breakdown in the production line, whatever, and when you get the group of people from all of the different disciplines together, the things they bring and what they will contribute, fantastic. And probably far greater than I ever could imagine, even though I've been with the company a long time. So I think using the team and engaging the team to contribute to solve the problems that frustrate them the most and to help you solve the issues that you want to break through to achieve your metrics is the best way.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, another question. Rich.
Hi, Richard Park, Head of Quality at Porter Cabin. My question is, when times are hard, business-wise, there's a tendency for the investment to dry up, and the leadership tend to want to focus on the basics. How do you maintain that focus on improvement and then expectations from people that have been involved in improvement that perhaps is tapering off a little bit? So how do you avoid them disengaging?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, and I think any company can describe what it is or what it wants to be when times are good, but when times are tough is really when you prove to all of your people what you're really about. And I go back to the Lehman shock where we saw the business drop off a cliff overnight, and how did we handle that? And I think many companies kind of just stopped, cut their workforce right down, and probably stopped their improvement and development activity. And I'll tell you what we did in Toyota. The first thing we did, all of us in the business across Europe took a 10% pay cut for a reduction in 10% working time. And honestly, it was more severe for the management team because we also cut all of the bonus, which was, of course, a more significant part of their total pay. But we did that, everyone. So everyone was in this. So everyone then worked like 9 days out of 10. And we had more people than we needed for the vehicles we were making, even though we were not working full-time. We did offer opportunity for voluntary retirement for people who wanted to do that and go somewhere else, but there was no push. That was voluntary. But I was the production director then, and what I thought about this, how can I do it? So I worked out we had enough production for 4 days on 2 shifts. So we worked 2 shifts, 4 days. And because we were working 9 days out of 10, half of the production team came in on Friday day shift, and they contributed all of that day shift to Kaizen, to continuous improvement. And I think the return we got on that, not just the financial, but the investment in people and the development in people and what those people carried with them, and the belief of the unions, the belief of the people that we were serious about it, went a lot further than just the measuring the financial gain of the Kaizen we did during that period. So I think really, if you invest in people in a brave way like that, you'll get great return. And often one of the most often questions I used to get was, how do you evaluate the benefit of all of these Kaizen you're doing in Toyota? We said, well, we don't. Because if we were trying to calculate the return on investment of each one, we would never start any of them and have no return. We just believed it was the right thing to do. If it's a big project, big investment, of course we have an approvals process. But for giving people time to do improvement each day or each week was just a kind of given.
No, fantastic. And it's fair to say, just thinking about that, the position after the Lehman shock, as a result of the retention policy in Toyota, you were in a much better place than a lot of competitors in the industry for the recovery.
Correct. And when you're a car maker or a big OEM, you have a big responsibility, like many of you in here, for your supply chain as well. So keeping that rhythm and heartbeat, not stopping for 3 months like some OEMs did, which really caused immense damage in the supply chain. Running a regular pattern, even though it shortened every week, kept the supply chain lubricated and running, so they could always come back strong, because you rely on those people tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question for Marvin. And let's not be shy. Sean, over there. Something about this side of the room going on here.
Yeah. Dangerous. So, Sean Buckland, PMI. I was very lucky recently to visit the Burnstone Toyota plant. And one of the things they warned us very early on is about management bingo, the daily management bingo. We were told to look out for seeing senior managers on the shop floor and how many we could meet. And within 2 hours, we'd already met 2-3 senior people from the plant. So my question is this, could you give us an example from your own experience about why this philosophy of the senior managers walking the floor every day is so important within Toyota, in a way that maybe gives us a story we can share to other managers who believe the next meeting in their office is the best place to be?
Well, I'd advise any practitioner, continuous improvement is very difficult to do from your desk. There will be elements of your study you can do there, but you've got to be in the Gemba, the real place, in the real time to see the real thing. And I think in Toyota's mindset, and I think we've all been through this, where how many times have you heard of a problem that probably happened the day before, the night before, typically in manufacturing environment as an executive, or so-and-so happened on the night shift. And in your brain, because you've got all this experience, you think, oh yeah, I know what it is. But then you go and have a look and you go, aha, it's nothing like I thought. And I think being in the real place is where you get the real facts and the real feeling. And beyond that, management and the like production workers or whatever, office workers, it doesn't matter, being together and communicating together, that's where consensus and commitment is built to do things together. And without any misinterpretation. And I think for all of us, when you read a message, an email, how many times have we all read emails this week and thought, not very happy with that, but then you realize if you read it again, it means something totally different. Or maybe something said or you overheard. I think we call it the Gamba in Toyota, going to the real place in the real time to see the real thing is where you have a shared and common understanding. You develop a commitment together. And I think management being on the floor is really important because we talk a lot in business about the inverted pyramid. The role of the management team is to support the rest of the organization to be able to achieve and do what they need to do. And I think presence in the workplace is one great way of doing and supporting that. So yeah, seeing what's really going off, understanding what's really going off, listening to the voice of the people, seeing the real thing, making commitment together. Just a few things, yeah.
Thanks, Marvin. Let's take a question from this side of the room.
It's great fun also, by the way. It's one thing I love the most.
Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony Richardson, PMI. It's difficult when you sat right next to the speaker. I'm getting an echo. So you've mentioned a lot of these words that have become kind of synonymous with Toyota, things like Doka and Hoshinkanri, Gemba. Which of those, if any of them, do you see most frequently misunderstood or misapplied, or do you find yourself having to correct people on the most often?
Oh, I don't know. That's a really difficult question, Anthony. I have to ask ChatGPT. In truth, there's a reason why Toyota uses those words, and that's because we couldn't find a simple English translation that worked well, So we kind of took the Japanese words and often anglicized them. I Yoko tend that last night, But I don't know if they're particularly misunderstood as words, if I'm honest with you. Kaizen, continuous improvement, or Yokoten, extend a good idea laterally, or whatever. I don't think they're particularly necessarily misunderstood, but I think, as I said a little bit earlier, the whole Toyota way, thinking way, I think has sometimes been misunderstood about just being a lean system, taking the waste out of everything by often a top-down approach. And I think that probably, the more broader picture, Anthony, has been the misunderstood part rather than a single element or word. I would say like that. I've heard many people say to me in the last few weeks, oh yeah, you did that Kaizen thing, continuous improvement. Yeah, we did. But I think moreover it's been the broader sort of philosophy and how the business is running and how it's focusing on engaging the people, if I'm honest.
Yeah, fantastic.
We'll try it in ChatGPT later and see if it comes back. See if it's hallucinating.
I think we had another over there, so Paul.
This is going to be tough because Paul worked for Toyota for a while.
I'm going to be kind. So my name's Paul Brooks-Baker, Head of Continuous Improvement at University Hospitals, Leicester. So Marvin, you're about to start a second career, 7 days in, I think you said. But over your, career to date, what would you take the most pride out of? What is your most proudest achievement?
Oh, goodness. I think it is a tough question because I think going back to I don't consider it's about me. It's that you thing. But I think the one thing I was aiming for in retirement was to feel comfortable that the organisation was going to continue on with even greater strength than when I was in it. So I was hoping that if I'd had a small part in developing an organisation that will be tremendously resilient and capable in the future and do better than I did, that I think that's always been what I've tried to achieve, rather than any single, oh yeah, we launched this product or we introduced this or whatever. So I think that's the one thing for me, if I may say, very generally. You know, because they always say it's what you leave behind. It's how it runs when you've left, not how it's running when you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul, for the tough question.
Okay, we've got time for 2 more questions. I can see we've got one here. If we just get a mic into the middle of the room, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Come on, Mo. Everyone's looking at you. Thank you very much.
My name's Saj Sadiq from Tenneco, automotive component supplier. It's a question about 5S, one of the lean tools. Could you speak 5S?
5S, oh yeah.
5S, sorry. Could you speak a little bit about the importance of it and how you sustained it, from your experience point of view?
This is one of the relentless activities, 4S or 5S. Toto often still talks about 4S because the discipline element we've kind of taken as given, but the whole principle was, we talked about 4S or 5S being the entrance to all work for safety or quality, because if you have a very clean and organized workspace, then abnormality can be detected very easily and quickly. So, from a safety and quality point of view, if there's oil seen on the floor, then something's not right. Something's gone wrong. If there's a screw on the floor, then we should be questioning, well, where's that come from? Hopefully it's not missing from a vehicle, but if someone's dropped it, it means they've had some difficulty. There's been some fluctuation or abnormality in the process. And I think that discipline allows you to see when the difference between right and wrong. Of course, it also brings with it a number of efficiencies. So, if you've got a maintenance organization using Shadowboard or whatever, shadow toolboxes to have all of the equipment laid out and set order, then it's very easy and very efficient when you go to do a particular task, because you're not wondering where something is, you've got it on hand. And you'll see that all over in Toyota, whether it's the areas like Paul worked in, where the quality assurance team going around have the exact wrenches to do their job, or in the process everything's set in the correct order to make work smooth. But very much it's to be able to see the difference between normality and abnormality at a glance.
Fantastic. And one final question. We've got a fight in the room here. We've got one at the front here. Let's take this one here. Sorry, mate.
Get your step count up.
I did see you going in the other direction. Thanks so much.
I'm DeAndre May, and I'm at Uniper in Germany. This is going to sound maybe a little fluffy, but I actually have a genuine interest in a similar career path after I retire and entering into academia. Few years. This is one of my bosses here.
You don't look old enough, anyway.
But I'm curious, what are some of the key learnings that you've taken from your career at Toyota that have helped you, or you think will help you in the future as you're becoming a professor? Because I think a lot of people are also planning to do something different in the future, perhaps. So I'm curious what some of those key learnings are, as well as what some of the surprises are as you've entered into your new role.
Yeah, fantastic.
No, I thank you. I think some of the things I already said to Rich, having that long-range view instead of just short-term profit thinking, and having a philosophy that lasts a long time. I think a lot of organizations struggle with sense of purpose and what does good look like. And that's really challenging, but somehow Toyota managed to create values a long time ago that have lasted a lifetime. And I think that for me, I didn't understand for a long time. I think I said in the podcast, it took me the first 5 years to work out what on earth is going on in Toyota. I felt rubbish at everything, I couldn't do a thing right. But I think that first of all, I think the strong development of process and use and application of process. I think the development of people to be able to complete those processes, and I think also the power of the engagement in people. And I think that I still say I'm always amazed by the infinite wisdom of people who do the job every day, how they can continue to find new opportunities, new improvement, new breakthroughs. That to me is just an amazing thing. And I take those thoughts with me. So now I'm in a university environment. Well, what's the process for this? Or, and I'm very pleased to say, from what I've seen so far, the University of Derby has a really good sort of framework of what its contribution is, and that very much attracted me in terms of where its role is in society and as a power of good. And a small advert. We're here in the University of Derby to support business, so not stepping on the toes of others, but education, bespoke programs, knowledge transfer, all of those things. So my business cards are just about dry now, so if you'd like to come and see me, I'd be delighted to have a chat with you about that today or in the future.
And we'll follow up to make sure there's details in the VOC that we send out as well, with those details as well. Fantastic. Well, Marvin, thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure for me. I can see from the many smiling faces in the room that our audience have enjoyed that. Fantastic, and thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.